The rain lashed against the windshield as Colonel Ava Winter's armored Humvee rolled up to the imposing gates of Arcadia Estates. Ava gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. This was no routine patrol. Her orders were to stop a rogue HOA leader dead in her tracks, no matter the cost. Ava glared at the woman standing defiantly at the gate, wielding a clipboard like a weapon. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside." Her voice was low and steady, betraying none of the turmoil churning within. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Colonel." The HOA president, Karen Westfield, narrowed her eyes. "This is a private community, and you have no jurisdiction here." Ava's jaw tightened. "I have direct orders from the mayor's office to shut down your little operation. You're under investigation for corruption, abuse of power, and God knows what else." Karen let out a sharp laugh. "Investigation? That's a joke. I run this town, and nobody, not the mayor, not the police, not even the military, is going to stop me." The tension in the air was palpable as the two women faced off, neither willing to back down. Ava knew she had to tread carefully. One wrong move, and this could turn into an all-out war. "I'm going to give you one last chance, Karen," Ava said, her voice laced with warning. "Stand down or I'll be forced to take action." Karen's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Do your worst, Colonel. You'll soon find out that I'm the one in charge here." Without warning, the gate began to close, the metal bars slowly sliding across the entrance. Ava's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. "Stop," she shouted, slamming her foot on the accelerator. The Humvee lurched forward, hurtling towards the closing gate. Ava gripped the steering wheel, her heart pounding in her chest. With a deafening crash, the Humvee rammed through the gate, sending shards of metal and glass flying in all directions. Ava fought to keep the vehicle under control, her eyes scanning the eerily quiet streets of Arcadia Estates. "All units, this is Colonel Winters," she barked into her radio. "I'm inside the community and under attack. Request immediate backup and air support." Static crackled in response, followed by a chilling silence. Ava felt a chill run down her spine. Something was very, very wrong. Suddenly, a movement in the shadows caught her eye. Ava tightened her grip on her sidearm, her finger poised on the trigger. She knew she was walking into a trap, but she had no choice. She had to stop Karen Westfield, no matter the cost. Slowly, Ava opened the Humvee's door and stepped out into the rain-soaked streets of Arcadia Estates, her senses on high alert. The air was thick with tension, and the only sound was the steady patter of the rain. As Ava cautiously made her way through the deserted streets, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The shadows seemed to close in around her, and the flickering streetlights only added to the sense of unease. Ava's heart raced as she approached the HOA's headquarters, a towering glass and steel monolith that cast an ominous shadow over the community. She knew that beyond those doors, Karen Westfield was waiting, ready to unleash her full arsenal of power and influence. With a deep breath, Ava pushed open the doors and stepped into the dimly lit lobby, her weapon raised and her senses on high alert. She was about to face the most formidable foe she had ever encountered, and she knew that the fate of Arcadia Estates, and perhaps even her own life, hung in the balance. The lobby of the Arcadia Estates HOA headquarters was a study in contrasts. Sleek, modern lines and a cold, sterile atmosphere that belied the corruption and abuse of power that festered within. Ava's footsteps echoed on the polished marble floor as she made her way across the cavernous space, her eyes darting from one shadow to the next, searching for any sign of movement. The air was thick with tension, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end, a primal instinct warning her of the danger that lurked within. Reaching the elevator, Ava pressed the call button, her finger poised on the trigger of her sidearm. The wait seemed to stretch on for an eternity, each passing second ratcheting up the tension. When the doors finally slid open, Ava braced herself, ready to confront whatever or whoever might be waiting. But the elevator was empty, and Ava breathed a slight sigh of relief as she stepped inside, pressing the button for the top floor. As the car ascended, Ava could feel the anxiety building, her mind racing with the possibilities in what she might find at the end of this journey. The doors opened, and Ava stepped out into a plush, opulent hallway, the kind of lavish decor that screamed of wealth and privilege. She knew that this was Karen Westfield's domain, the nerve center of her empire. And she also knew that the woman herself was likely waiting, ready to defend her kingdom at all costs. Ava moved cautiously down the hallway, her senses on high alert, her fingers still poised on the trigger. The sound of her boots on the plush carpet seemed to echo, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Reaching a set of heavy oak doors, Ava paused, taking a deep breath to steady her nerves. This was it, the moment of truth. With a determination that belied the turmoil within, she pushed open the doors and stepped into the inner sanctum of the Arcadia Estates HOA. The room was vast, dominated by a massive mahogany desk that seemed to command the entire space. And seated behind that desk, her eyes fixed on Ava with a look of cold, calculating triumph, was Karen Westfield. "Welcome, Colonel Winters," Karen purred, her voice dripping with sardonic amusement. "I must say, I'm impressed that you managed to make it this far, but I'm afraid your little crusade ends here." Ava kept her weapon trained on the older woman, her grip steady despite the pounding of her heart. "This isn't over, Karen. I've got enough evidence to bring you down and dismantle this whole corrupt system you've built." Karen let out a harsh laugh, the sound sending a chill down Ava's spine. "Evidence? My dear Colonel, you have no idea the depths of my power. This community is mine, and I answer to no one." Ava felt her stomach twist with a growing sense of unease. She had known that Karen Westfield was a formidable opponent, but the sheer arrogance and confidence with which she spoke was truly unsettling. "You're wrong, Karen," Ava said, her voice laced with a steely determination. "The mayor's office, the police, they're all on my side. This ends today." Karen's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Oh, Ava, you've been so very, very naive. Did you really think I wouldn't have contingencies in place? This community is my kingdom, and I will stop at nothing to defend it." Before Ava could react, the doors behind her slammed shut, and the sound of locks engaging echoed through the room. Ava whirled around, her heart pounding, as she realized that she had walked straight into a trap. Panic began to set in as Ava realized the gravity of her situation. She was alone with no backup and surrounded by an enemy who seemed to have every advantage. But she was determined to fight, no matter the cost. With her weapon raised and her eyes narrowed, Ava turned back to face Karen Westfield, ready to do whatever it took to stop the Ho's reign of terror once and for all. The tension in the room was palpable as Ava and Karen stared each other down, the air crackling with the intensity of their silent standoff. Ava's finger remained poised on the trigger, her weapon trained on the older woman, while Karen sat calmly behind her desk, a smug expression on her face. "You know, Ava, I have to admire your tenacity," Karen said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Most people would have backed down by now, but not you. You just keep coming, don't you?" Ava's jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing. "I won't stop until I've exposed the truth and put an end to your corruption. This community has suffered long enough under your tyrannical rule." Karen let out a soft chuckle, the sound grating on Ava's nerves. "Corruption? Tyrannical rule? My dear, you have no idea what you're up against. This community is my kingdom, and I will do whatever it takes to protect it." Ava felt a surge of anger coursing through her veins. "So, what? You're just going to kill me? Is that your grand plan? Kill you?" Karen repeated, her lips curling into a sinister smile. "Oh no, my dear. I have something much more creative in mind." With a nod, Karen pressed a button on her desk, and suddenly the room was flooded with a series of low, ominous beeps. Ava felt her heart skip a beat as she realized that the room was rigged with motion sensors and hidden cameras, a sophisticated security system that would no doubt be used against her. "What is this?" Ava demanded, her eyes darting around the room, searching for any potential escape routes. "This, my dear Ava, is the true power of the Arcadia Estates Hoa," Karen replied, leaning back in her chair with a self-satisfied smirk. "We have eyes and ears everywhere, and we use that knowledge to maintain control over our community." Ava's grip on her weapon tightened, her knuckles turning white. "You're sick, you know that? This isn't about protecting your community. It's about your own twisted desire for power." Karen's expression darkened, and for a moment, Ava thought she saw a glimmer of genuine anger in the older woman's eyes. "Power? Oh no, Ava. This is about so much more than that. This is about preserving the way of life that we've worked so hard to build here. And I'll be damned if I let you or anyone else tear it all down." Ava felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the full extent of Karen's obsession. This wasn't just about power, it was about control, about an unyielding determination to maintain the status quo at all costs. "So what now?" Ava asked, her voice trembling slightly despite her best efforts to remain calm. "Are you going to have your security team drive me out of here in handcuffs?" Karen let out a soft chuckle, shaking her head. "Oh no, Ava, I have something much more poetic in mind." Before Ava could react, the doors behind her swung open and a group of men in dark suits and sunglasses filed into the room, their faces expressionless. Ava's heart raced as she realized that she was completely surrounded with no way out. "What is the meaning of this?" Ava demanded, her voice laced with a growing sense of panic. "These, my dear Ava, are the enforcers of the Arcadia Estates Hoa," Karen replied, her voice dripping with sickening satisfaction. "And they're here to make sure that you never, ever set foot in this community again." Ava felt her blood run cold as the realization hit her. She had walked straight into a trap, and now she was completely at the mercy of Karen Westfield and her twisted vision for Arcadia Estates. With nowhere to run and no backup on the way, Ava knew that she was facing the fight of her life, but she was determined to go down swinging, no matter the cost. The air in the room was thick with tension as Ava faced down the small army of enforcers that had surrounded her, their expressions betraying no hint of emotion. She knew that she was in a perilous situation, but she refused to let the fear show on her face. "So what now, Karen?" Ava asked, her voice surprisingly steady despite the pounding of her heart. "You going to have your goons rough me up and toss me out on the street?" Karen let out a low chuckle, her eyes gleaming with a malicious satisfaction. "Oh, Ava, you really have no idea what you're up against, do you? These men are more than just my enforcers. They're the very foundation upon which Arcadia Estates is built." Ava felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the implication of Karen's words. These men weren't just muscle. They were the puppets that pulled the strings, the hidden power behind the scenes that kept the Aitoa's grip on the community ironclad. "You're insane," Ava spat, her grip on her weapon tightening. "This whole thing is nothing more than an elaborate power trip, and you're dragging these people down with you." Karen's expression darkened, and for a moment, Ava thought she saw a flicker of genuine anger in the older woman's eyes. "Power trip? Oh no, my dear. This is about preserving the way of life that we've worked so hard to build here. And I'll be damned if I let you or anyone else tear it all down." Ava felt a surge of disgust wash over her. "So that's it, then? You're just going to bury me and anyone else who dares to challenge you." "Bury you?" Karen repeated, a cruel smile spreading across her face. "Oh, no, Ava. I have something much more creative in mind." With a wave of her hand, Karen signaled to the enforcers, and they began to move in, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Ava's heart raced as she realized that she was about to be outmatched and outmaneuvered. These men were professionals, trained to handle any situation, and she knew that her chances of emerging victorious were slim. But she refused to go down without a fight. As the enforcers closed in, Ava sprang into action, her weapon raised and her finger on the trigger. Shots rang out, the sound deafening in the small, enclosed space, and one by one, the enforcers fell, their bodies crumpling to the ground. Karen watched the scene unfold, her expression a mix of shock and fury. And Ava knew that she had struck a nerve. "You're finished, Karen," Ava growled, her voice laced with a triumphant defiance. "The mayor's office is onto you, and the whole world is going to know about your twisted little kingdom." Karen's lips curled into a snarl, and for a moment, Ava thought she might just lunge across the desk and attack her. But then the strange calm seemed to wash over the older woman, and Ava felt a chill run down her spine. "Oh, Ava," Karen said, her voice dripping with a twisted amusement. "You really have no idea what you're up against, do you?" Before Ava could react, a loud crash echoed through the room, and she whirled around to see a large, hulking figure barreling towards her, his fists raised. Ava tried to raise her weapon, but she was too slow, and the enforcer's massive fist connected with her jaw, sending her reeling. She felt the world spin around her as she hit the ground, her weapon clattering to the floor. As Ava lay there, dazed and disoriented, she heard Karen's voice, dripping with a sickening satisfaction. "Welcome to my kingdom, Ava. I hope you enjoy your stay." With that, everything went black, and Ava knew that she had been defeated. Her crusade against the Arcadia Estates' Hoa's corruption brought to a screeching halt. Ava's head throbbed as she slowly regained consciousness, her vision blurry and disoriented. She blinked a few times, trying to make sense of her surroundings. She was in a small, dimly lit room, the walls lined with shelves and storage containers. It took her a moment to realize that she was in some kind of basement or storage facility, far from the opulent offices of the Arcadia Estates of OA. Ava tried to move, but she found that her hands and feet were bound, a thick rope securing her to a sturdy metal chair. Her heart raced as the gravity of the situation sank in. She had been captured, taken prisoner by the very people she had sworn to stop. Panic began to set in as Ava realized that she was completely at the mercy of Karen Westfield and her twisted cable of enforcers. She had come so close to exposing the truth, to bringing down the corrupt HOA, and now it seemed like all her efforts had been for naught. Well, look who's finally decided to join us." Ava's head snapped up at the sound of the familiar voice, and her eyes narrowed as she caught sight of Karen Westfield, standing in the doorway with a smug expression on her face. "What do you want from me, Karen?" Ava spat, her voice laced with a mix of anger and desperation. Karen let out a soft chuckle as she stepped closer, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. "Oh, Ava, I think you already know the answer to that. You're a threat, a thorn in my side that I simply can't afford to leave in place." Ava felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the full extent of Karen's plans. "So, what? You're just going to kill me? Is that it?" Karen shook her head, a twisted smile spreading across her face. "Kill you? Oh no, my dear. That would be far too merciful. No, I have something much more creative in mind." Ava felt her stomach twist with dread as Karen gestured to someone behind her, and a moment later, a tall, menacing figure stepped into the room. "This is Brock," Karen said, her voice dripping with a sickening satisfaction. "He's one of my most trusted enforcers, and he's very, very good at his job." Ava's eyes widened as she took in the man's hulking, muscular frame and the cold, calculating expression on his face. She knew that she was in serious trouble, and the realization of just how far Karen was willing to go to protect her empire only served to deepen her sense of dread. "What are you going to do to me?" Ava asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Karen's smile only grew wider. "Oh, Ava, I'm not going to do anything to you. Brock, on the other hand, has a very specific set of skills that I think you're going to find enlightening." Ava felt a shiver of fear run down her spine as Brock moved closer, his massive frame looming over her. She knew that she was completely at his mercy, and the thought of what he might do to her was enough to make her stomach churn. "You know, Ava, I've always admired your tenacity," Karen said, her voice dripping with a twisted sense of pride. "But sometimes the only way to win is to play by a different set of rules." Ava felt a surge of defiance rise up within her, and she glared up at Karen, her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "You won't get away with this, Karen. The mayor's office, the police, they're all on to you. It's only a matter of time before this whole rotten system comes crashing down." Karen let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "Oh, Ava, you really have no idea, do you? This community is my kingdom, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect it, even if it means breaking a few rules along the way." With that, Karen turned and left the room, leaving Ava alone with the towering figure of Brock, who stared down at her with a chilling, predatory gaze. Ava knew that she was in for the fight of her life, and she steeled herself for the ordeal that was to come. But deep down, she refused to give up, her determination to expose the truth burning brighter than ever before. The air in the dimly lit room was thick with tension as Ava stared up at the hulking figure of Brock, the enforcer's cold, calculating gaze sending a shiver down her spine. She knew that she was in grave danger, but she refused to let the fear show on her face. Brock circled Ava like a predator stalking its prey, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Ava's heart pounded in her chest as she waited, her muscles tensing in anticipation of the impending attack. "You know, Ava," Brock finally spoke, his voice low and rumbling. "Karen's been keeping an eye on you for a while now. She's seen how tenacious you are, how determined you are to take her down." Ava felt a surge of defiance rise up within her. "Then she should know that I'm not going to give up without a fight." Brock let out a deep, guttural laugh. "Oh, I'm counting on it. Karen wants to break you, Ava, and she's given me free rein to do whatever it takes to make that happen." Ava felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the full extent of Brock's capabilities. This was no ordinary thug. He was a highly trained enforcer, a master of psychological torture and physical intimidation. "So, what, you're going to beat me until I give in?" Ava spat, her voice laced with a defiant bravado that belied the fear churning within her. Brock shook his head, a sinister smile spreading across his face. "Oh no, Ava, that would be too easy. No, I'm going to break you down piece by piece until you're begging for mercy." Ava felt her stomach twist with dread as Brock moved closer, his massive frame looming over her. She knew that she was completely at his mercy, and the thought of what he might do to her was enough to make her sick. "You know, Ava, Karen's got a lot riding on this. She's built an empire here, and she'll do whatever it takes to protect it, even if that means getting her hands a little dirty." Ava glared up at him, her eyes narrowed. "You're both sick. You know that? This isn't about protecting a community. It's about your own twisted desire for power and control." Brock let out a low, rumbling chuckle. "Power and control? Oh, Ava, it's so much more than that. This is about preserving a way of life, a legacy that Karen and her people have worked tirelessly to build. And you, my dear, are a threat to all of that." Ava felt a surge of anger wash over her, and she strained against her bonds, desperate to break free and confront her tormentor. "You're delusional, the both of you. This is nothing more than a power grab, and you're willing to trample over anyone who gets in your way." Brock's expression darkened, and Ava could see the rage simmering just beneath the surface. "You have no idea what you're up against, Ava. Karen's got eyes and ears everywhere, and she's got a lot of powerful friends who are willing to do whatever it takes to keep this community under her control." Ava felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the full extent of the HOA's reach. This was no longer just about a corrupt homeowners association. It was a sprawling, interconnected web of power and influence, one that stretched far beyond the boundaries of Arcadia estates. "So what, you're going to torture me until I give in?" Ava asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Brock leaned in, his breath hot on Ava's face. "No, Ava, I'm going to break you, piece by piece, until you have no choice but to submit." With that, Brock stepped back, his eyes gleaming with a twisted sense of anticipation. Ava felt a surge of fear wash over her, but she refused to show it. She knew that she was in for the fight of her life, and she was determined to come out on top, no matter the cost. The air in the dimly lit room was thick with tension as Ava watched Brock move around, his massive frame casting long, ominous shadows across the concrete walls. She knew that her time was running out, that the enforcer was gearing up to unleash his twisted brand of torture upon her. Ava took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She refused to show any signs of fear, even as her heart pounded in her chest. She was determined to face whatever Brock had in store for her with unwavering resolve. Suddenly, Brock turned to face her, a twisted smile on his lips. "You know, Ava, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Karen's been talking about you for months, about how you're the only one who's managed to get under her skin." Ava felt a chill run down her spine at the mention of Karen's name. "What does she want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Brock let out a low chuckle. "What does she want?" "Oh, Ava, it's simple. She wants you to submit, to give up your crusade against the HOA and accept her rule over this community." Ava felt a surge of defiance rise up within her. "Well, she can forget it. I'm not going to back down, no matter what you do to me." Brock's expression darkened and Ava could see the rage simmering just beneath the surface. "You don't seem to understand, Ava. This isn't about just you anymore. Karen's got a lot of powerful friends who are willing to do whatever it takes to keep this community under her control." Ava felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the full extent of the HOA's reach. This was no longer just about a corrupt homeowners association. It was a sprawling, interconnected web of power and influence that stretched far beyond the boundaries of Arcadia Estates. "So, what, you're going to torture me until I give in?" Ava asked, her voice laced with defiance. Brock let out a low, rumbling chuckle. "Torture you? Oh no. Ava, that would be too easy. No, I'm going to break you down piece by piece until you have no choice but to submit." Ava felt a surge of fear wash over her, but she refused to let it show. She knew that she was in for the fight of her life, and she was determined to come out on top no matter the cost. As Brock moved closer, Ava braced herself, her muscles tensing in anticipation of the impending attack. But instead of lashing out, Brock reached into his pocket and pulled out a small electronic device. "You see this, Ava?" he said, his voice low and menacing. "This is a high-frequency sonic emitter. It's been modified to inflict a level of pain that most people can't even begin to imagine." Ava felt her stomach twist with dread as she watched Brock activate the device, a low, pulsing hum filling the air. She knew that she was in serious trouble, and the thought of what Brock had in store for her was enough to make her sick. "Now, Ava," Brock said, his voice dripping with a twisted sense of satisfaction, "let's see how long you can hold out before you start begging for mercy." Without warning, Brock pressed the device against Ava's temple, and a wave of searing white-hot pain exploded through her skull. Ava screamed, her body convulsing as the relentless assault on her senses threatened to overwhelm her. As the seconds ticked by, Ava felt her resolve begin to crumble. The pain was unlike anything she had ever experienced, and the thought of enduring more of it was enough to make her want to give in. But even as the agony threatened to consume her, Ava refused to give up. She knew that the fate of Arcadia Estates and perhaps even her own life hung in the balance, and she was determined to fight, no matter the cost. Ava's world had narrowed to a single excruciating point of pain as Brock's modified sonic emitter assaulted her senses. The relentless, pulsing hum seemed to burrow deep into her skull, sending shockwaves of agony through every nerve ending. Ava gritted her teeth, her body convulsing against the restraints as she fought to maintain her composure. She refused to give in, refused to let Karen and her twisted enforcers break her. But the pain was unlike anything she had ever experienced, and with each passing second, her resolve began to crumble. Brock watched the scene with a twisted sense of satisfaction, his eyes gleaming with a predatory intensity. "You know, Ava, you're tougher than I thought. Most people would have been begging for mercy by now." Ava let out a ragged gasp, her voice barely audible. "I won't give in," she managed to choke out, her words laced with a defiant determination. Brock let out a soft chuckle, lowering the sonic emitter slightly. "We'll see about that, Ava. Karen's got a lot riding on this, and she's not the kind of woman who takes failure lightly." Ava felt a chill run down her spine at the mention of Karen's name. The HOA president had proven herself to be a formidable and ruthless adversary, and Ava knew that she was willing to go to any lengths to protect her empire. "What does she want from me?" Ava gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. Brock's lips curled into a cruel smile. "What does she want?" "Simple. She wants you to give up your crusade against the HOA and accept her rule over this community." Ava felt a surge of defiance rise up within her, and she glared up at Brock, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. "Never," she growled, her voice ragged but unwavering. Rock's expression darkened and he pressed the sonic emitter against Ava's temple once more, unleashing another wave of agonizing pain. Ava screamed, her body thrashing against the restraints as the relentless assault on her senses threatened to overwhelm her. As the seconds ticked by, Ava felt her consciousness slipping away, the world around her fading into a haze of agony and despair. But even as the pain threatened to consume her, a part of her refused to give in. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the building, the sound echoing through the small room and causing Brock to stumble back in surprise. Ava felt a surge of hope rise up within her, her heart pounding in her chest. "What the hell?" Brock growled, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the room. Another explosion, this one closer, and the sound of gunfire filled the air. Ava felt a sense of relief wash over her as she realized that reinforcements had arrived, that the cavalry had finally come. Brock cursed under his breath, his grip on the sonic emitter tightening. "Looks like your friends have finally decided to show up," he sneered, his eyes gleaming with a twisted determination. "But I'm not going down without a fight." With that, Brock lunged forward, the sonic emitter held high, his intention to inflict one final devastating blow. But before he could reach Ava, a shot rang out and Brock's body crumpled to the ground, the sonic emitter clattering to the floor. Ava blinked, her vision blurred and her mind still reeling from the relentless assault on her senses. But as the dust settled, she caught sight of a familiar figure standing in the doorway, his weapon still raised. "Colonel Winters," the man said, his voice laced with relief. "We've been searching for you everywhere. Are you all right?" Ava opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She nodded weakly, her body still trembling from the ordeal she had endured. As the other soldiers rushed in to secure the scene, Ava felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. But even as her eyelids grew heavy, she knew that the fight was far from over. Karen Westfield and her corrupt HOA empire had been dealt a blow, but Ava knew that the battle was just beginning, and she was determined to see it through, no matter the cost.